unfortunately, there's going to be no magic boats or bridges. In fact, there's going to be no non-magic boats or bridges. I would have loved to have put a sailboat. I'm kind of partial to sailboats, but on it, but alas, no. So that's it. Right. So last time I really talked about 2110-41, which was the new SMPTE standard introducing a way to transfer metadata over real-time network. And that we've done trials with that. As things have gone on, things have matured, and people are looking at putting complete systems together. And we're looking at trying to see, okay, you need more than just real-time protocol to make next generation audio and high definition video work using dynamic metadata to enable those features. So what else do we need? Okay. So if you look at broadcasters and pay TV operators and the kind of evolution that they've gone through, they've probably started with a traditional workflow up here. Then VOD's come along. They've had a new VOD workflow, which is separate, that they've introduced. And then they've thought, hey, there's a lot of redundancy here. We want to try and consolidate our...
Oh, I think it's set for a switch off in a few seconds, something.
Right. So they've tried to optimize their operations, merged in their traditional with VOD, and that's great. And we've got, they want to do next generation audio, so immersive, personalized, accessible features. So they're going to need IP to do that, and that's great because we've got 2110 with the suite of standards that can support all of that. But the problem comes is how do we store things on the media server for play out or for encoding over VOD? So that's what we're looking at today. And pay TV operators and broadcasters are in a kind of tough position, like harder than, say, a VOD provider, because they're getting content from lots of different places, and also they're having to distribute in lots of different formats. And you've got this kind of N-by-N problem where you have to do loads of conversions. And generally, this is solved with a house format or repository format. So this is not new here. People have done that for a long time. And OP1A, SMPTE OP1A, you're probably familiar with. If you on the file-based side, it's been around for a long time. AS11, which is used in the UK, is a derived version of OP1A. It's basically in videotape, but in file-based form. Okay, it can sit on a server and be played out. So this is a kind of starting point for trying to solve this problem. The question is, how can we do this for including HDR, support HDR video and next generation audio? So this is the problem we were trying to solve. It's really reusing everything that we have with MXF, OP1A, but just finding new ways to support the extra data, metadata that's required, and making sure that we've got all the standards and specifications in place in order to do that. And it's kind of important that the metadata be contained within the file because it's and closely associated with the content itself. If you tried to do it another way and doing like sidecar stuff, you just end up having to do lots of things which is not really standardized. So, so starting right at the beginning of the workflow where you've got content coming from the studio, well, how would you do that? So IMF, the interoperable master format, is a great way to solve this problem because a lot of standardization has been done with formats that carry exactly what we need. So we've got ISXD, which is a way of carrying generic XML, but we can use that for carrying dynamic video metadata, which is needed for HDR.
I think that's going to switch off in 1 minute.
Yeah, we've got a warning on the screen, which is kind of in Dutch. And also for audio side, the audio metadata, we have ways of carrying ADM, serialized ADM, which could handle the next generation audio stuff, and also IAB, that stands for immersive audio bitstream. That's kind of like format for Dolby Atmos in a post-produced piece of content, which would be mostly for VOD kind of delivery. Okay, so on the live side, it's a little bit different because you don't have the authoring typically upstream. It may be done back in the facility. Certainly for video, it's actually the video metadata authoring is done at the same time as encoding. So typically what would happen is asset would be captured as it's live. You create a file asset, and then your authoring would be done off stream, kind of offline. You then create your repository file asset offline, which could then go on a server and be played back at a later time. Serial ADM authoring could be done upstream, or it could be done at the facility. As long as you know what it is that's coming in, it means then that your mixer can't change things on the fly. Things are more static. Okay, so with this repository file, there's kind of two options that you have, or configurations that it's worth talking about. There's this, what we call same house and playout format, where you have a single repository file, and you're using that both for VOD encoding and for linear playout. So the advantage of this is that you only have the one file that you've got a QC. The disadvantage is you may need to do some conversions on linear playout that have to happen in real time. And so, you know, there's only so much you can do in real time. That kind of constrains you a little bit. So maybe there may be some quality compromises with that approach, but it's optimized for QC. So this approach, using two repository files, you've got more QC now because you've got two files you've got to run through your QC system, but you can optimize one for VOD delivery. So that would typically be in the kind of original frame rate, and then convert to a frame rate which is ideal for playout. Maybe, so you may be going from 24, say, that you would get from studio to 50, which is what will be used for playout. But you can do that conversion offline. So you've got plenty of time to do that, and you don't need to worry about the real-time aspects. So, but you've got to do more QC. So, okay, now just quickly, I'm going to talk about what ISXD and serialized ADM, because these are the two new components to enable HDR with dynamic metadata plus next generation audio. Essentially, all these are XML documents which are sent repeatedly over time, in real time, into whatever container it is, maybe with some optional compression. The compression really only applies to the serialized ADM. There actually is no mechanism at the moment for compressing ISXD on the video side. So ISXD, it's actually not specific to video. It could be any metadata in XML form. There is no registry as such that you have to like sign up and get your number. There is, on the MXF side, for the 2110, we did have to apply for a data type, which we have. We have a provisional one, which is here. But in the coming months, that will be published by SMPTE. So that's kind of a guaranteed way of like identifying, okay, this is ISXD metadata that's being carried across on a 2110 network. Okay. So this is being used for Dolby Vision, but this is not a Dolby thing. Other systems using dynamic metadata like HDR10 Plus could equally use this. It's open for anyone to use. The format and the metadata and the contents of it are not defined in the standards. That's kind of opaque. Okay, so serialized ADM. So I presented on this kind of last year. It's been around for quite some time now. There's two versions of it, an ADM, which is a file-based version, and a serialized ADM, which is the real-time version. Dolby Atmos in post-production uses ADM for the ADM master, so it's very ubiquitous. And it's supported and standardized in all the major containers. So it is really the way to describe audio going forward. So it has some compression for bandwidth limited containers, not really applicable to IP, but it's useful for SDI. And one other format that we needed was a Dolby E compatible profile. So Dolby E is a legacy audio format. It's 20 years old now, but a lot of organizations have big libraries of Dolby E, and they're looking at moving to use ADM and serialized ADM, and they have requested a way of carrying the Dolby E metadata across the network or storing it in files without having to actually have the Dolby E bit stream and deal with the decoding and all the rest of it. So this provides a solution for that. It's not something we're licensing. It's publicly available. There is code on GitHub to do it. All the information that you need to do it or to implement it is freely available. There's no licensing program associated with this. Okay. So we've now got a kind of small ecosystem of kind of first generation products based around this repository file. And these are the kind of the folks here that are involved. So you can go and talk to any of them. They have about it. I know BeBright particularly have demos on the UHD forum booth. They have a really interesting demo. That's a good one to catch in Hall 14, I think that is. And also, I've put a whole bunch of information about the repository file online for you to have a look at. At the moment, we have some, I would say, high-level information plus various pieces of example code that you can kind of use to get going, like muxers, demuxers, conversion code, and so on. Okay, so in terms of case studies and who's actually using this in reality, Canal Plus are the first organization, and they were really kind to let us talk about this and publicly. They've really been our partners in trying to solve this problem, but solve it in a kind of real world way. And they're up and going now with VOD, and they're doing linear trials at the moment. On the ingest side with Canal Plus, we've got the Marquis products, which are used normally for generating the repository file. The exception to that would be for Dolby E. Emotion Systems has a long history of dealing with Dolby E in the file world, so they were kind of an ideal partner to then do the conversion between Dolby E and the ADM representation of Dolby E. So that is something that they've kind of taken on. And they're at the booth as well, at the show as well. On the playout side, Canal Plus decided to take the single repository file approach. And for VOD encoding, they use a Dolby service, Dolby Hybrid, for that. And on the playout side, we have the actual playout itself is done by BeBright. There's audio processing by Younger. We actually have a couple of Younger colleagues here as well, so you can ask them more details about exactly what they do, the manipulation of the audio and the metadata. That's all done in real time. It doesn't deal with the repository file itself directly, but it could be processing of the audio and metadata which is being played out. And then Atem are the main encoding partner that are receiving the streams, the metadata, video and audio metadata streams, and performing the compression for distribution. Okay. So thinking ahead, okay, what happens now? We've got one broadcaster up and going. Of course, we are talking with lots of broadcasters about this. There's quite a lot of interest, so we hope that we'll get another one on board soon. This, by the way, this is not something that as Dolby we are pushing on trying to monetize. It's really more that this solves a problem for broadcasters and pay TV operators, and so we want to make sure that people know that this exists. That's the purpose of me talking today. Going forward, I'm going to be publishing a specification of exactly what the repository file is, probably with either the UHG forum or maybe the SPTA, but in that, some kind of organization like that under their umbrella. And also some guidelines just to help implementers and so on. And then we expect products to evolve over time. And actually an interesting point, just to kind of show where maybe things are going, is Junger collaborated with SSL on providing a way that an SSL console can do monitoring of different audio presentations. So these could be different languages or different versions of the audio, but how that can be done with a console and with a mixer in real time. And so SSL and Junger have worked together in order to form that integration. And we expect more of that kind of thing, like partners getting together to solve things and streamline workflows for their customers. And then we expect the formats to evolve. Like XAVC is actually kind of quite an old video. One great thing would be the adoption of JPEG XS, because actually that can be carried natively in a compressed form over 2110. So that would avoid the kind of decoding of the video at during playout. The compressed video could just be played out over the network. So we're kind of expecting support of different video codecs, certainly going forward. Okay.